The night shimmered with gold chandeliers and champagne laughter inside the ballroom of the Sterling Grand in downtown Atlanta. Waiters in crisp white shirts drifted between tables set with crystal, candles, and pastel roses. It was supposed to be a perfect night, her sister-in-law's wedding. A family celebration, but for Lena Davis, it turned into public humiliation. She sat at table 28, the farthest one from the stage. The people around her were laughing, clinking glasses, feeding each other cake. Her own plate was empty. Every waiter who passed glanced at her, hesitated, then moved on. When one finally stopped and bent down to whisper, "Ma'am, I'll bring your meal in just a minute," a harsh voice sliced through the music. "Don't you dare. She's not family. She came here to eat for free." Heads turned. Terrell Davis, Lena's husband of 10 years, stood near the main table, tuxedo gleaming, face twisted with contempt. His words boomed through the hall. "Don't waste food on freeloaders," he said louder, gesturing toward her. "You can clear that plate." Lena's stomach nodded as whispers rippled through the guests. Someone laughed, an ugly, nervous laugh, and the entire hall went still. The waiter froze, unsure whether to obey. Lena's cheeks burned. She wanted to disappear. Terrell strode toward her, grabbed the plate from the table, and slammed it onto the floor. The porcelain shattered like gunfire. "You don't belong with us," he shouted. "You're nothing to this family." The band stopped mid-note. Even the bride, Terrell's younger sister Tiffany, covered her mouth in shock. The silence pressed in on Lena until she could hear her own pulse hammering in her ears. She rose, steadying herself on the back of her chair, ready to walk out with what little dignity she had left, and that was when he arrived. A tall man with white-streaked hair and skin like polished mahogany stepped into the light near the doorway. His black suit fit with surgical precision, and the diamond cufflinks on his wrists caught the chandelier's glow. Victor Sterling, the name whispered through every corridor of Atlanta finance, surveyed the room with a calm so heavy it silenced the crowd even more. He walked straight to Lena. "Take my arm," he said quietly. His voice carried the weight of a man used to obedience. Lena hesitated, trembling. Terrell's eyes went wide. "What are you doing here?" Terrell stammered. "This is a private event." Victor turned his head slightly. "Private? You're standing in my ballroom." A low murmur spread. People gasped as realization hit the Sterling Grand belonged to him. He nodded toward the stage. "Tell me, Mr. Davis," he continued evenly, "did you pay your bills before calling your wife a beggar?" Terrell opened his mouth, but no sound came. Victor gestured, and a suited assistant appeared from nowhere, holding a folder. "Your family's checks bounced? Catering, decor, everything. The only reason this farce kept going was my courtesy. But I don't do charity for men who humiliate women in my house." He turned to the stunned bride and groom. "The event is over. Security clear the room." Gasps and protests erupted. Waiters began stacking plates. The DJ froze. Tiffany burst into tears. Terrell tried to lunge toward Victor, but two of Victor's bodyguards stepped forward instantly. Outside, the storm had begun. Rain streaked across the marble steps as the guests scattered, their dresses dragging through puddles. Lena stood beneath the awning, numb, watching chaos unfold. Terrell caught her wrist. "This is your fault. You and your fake sympathy act." He raised his hand. Victor's guard caught it midair. "Don't," the man said flatly. Terrell jerked free, shouting curses, but no one listened. The white limousine door opened, and Victor gestured for Lena to enter. She hesitated again, soaked and shaking. Then she slid inside. The car door closed with a quiet finality that sounded like the end of 10 years through the tinted glass. She saw Terrell's outline in the rain small, furious, collapsing into a puddle of his own rage as police lights flashed at the front entrance. The ruined wedding was now a crime scene of humiliation. The limousine glided through the city, past neon lights and empty avenues, until it stopped outside a 24-hour coffee shop. Inside, the air smelled of roasted beans and safety. Victor ordered black coffee for himself, chamomile tea for her. He didn't speak until she stopped shaking. Double quotes, Mrs. Davis. He said finally, I don't interfere in domestic matters. But tonight you were wronged under my roof. She stared at him, voice barely a whisper. Why would you care? He slid a slim folder across the table. Because this isn't about pity. It's about property. Your husband mortgaged his company and your marital home to my firm without your consent. Legally, he transferred all assets to you 3 weeks ago. Lena blinked. Yes, his mother and sister pressured him into using your name as a cover. They thought you'd never notice. But the signatures are real. As of midnight, you are the registered owner of Davis Freight and Logistics and every piece of real estate they once controlled. She opened the folder. The papers inside glowed faintly under the cafe's warm light. Legal seals, property deeds, account statements. Her own signature appeared on every page. Her throat tightened. Victor's gaze softened slightly. What you do with it is your choice. But understand this, those people would rather burn you alive than see you in power. Lena's hands trembled as she traced her name on the document. It felt unreal, like reading a stranger's verdict. My signature, she whispered, is either a verdict or a weapon. Victor rose, dropped a business card beside her cup, and said, when you decide which, call me. Then he walked out into the rain, leaving her with the folder, the tea, and a future she never asked for. By the time dawn broke over Atlanta, the rain had stopped, but the city still smelled of thunder and betrayal. Lena Davis stood at the gates of her mansion in the upscale Buckhead district, her coat clinging to her damp skin. A folder of documents clutched to her chest like a shield. The wrought iron gate loomed in front of her, black and glistening. She entered the passcode on the keypad, the same one she had used for years. But the machine chirped an angry red flash. Access denied. She tried again. Same result. Her pulse quickened. Terrell had changed the locks. Her house. Her name on the deed. Her marriage bed, and he'd shut her out overnight. She looked at the towering facade behind the gate, the white columns, the arched windows, the expensive lie of it all, and something inside her broke. Quietly and completely, pulling out her phone, she called the emergency locksmith. Hi, she said, her voice trembling but firm. This is Mrs. Lena Davis, owner of the property at 112 Brookstone Lane. I'm locked out, but I have proof of ownership and ID. The man arrived within 30 minutes, yawning, toolbox in hand. Ma'am, you sure this is your place? Looks like a big house for one person. Lena handed him the document folder. My name's right there. Every title. Every account. He blinked when he saw the notarized seals, then nodded. Within minutes, the gate opened with a metallic groan. She walked up the curved driveway, the click of her heels echoing across wet stone. Inside, the air was thick with perfume, the kind she never wore. Soft jazz played from upstairs. She followed the sound and froze at the bedroom doorway. Marina, her husband's personal assistant, blonde weave, satin robe, and bare legs, sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through her phone like she owned the place. A faint smile touched her lips when she saw Lena. Well, Marina drawled, you took your time. Lena's eyes drifted to the vanity. 2 wine glasses, a half-empty bottle, and on the nightstand, a positive pregnancy test. Marina stood, stretching lazily. He told me you'd come early. I said she's too polite for that. She laughed softly. Guess I was wrong. Lena's voice trembled. You live here now? Marina's smile sharpened. Since last night? Terrell said you'd be out soon. The deed reversal's already in motion. His mama's lawyer is handling it. Lena lifted the folder in her hand. The liar can't reverse what the law already sealed. This house is in my name, legally, permanently. Marina's amusement flickered. Sweetheart, she said, you think those papers mean anything when Tamara Jackson makes a phone call? You think anyone's on your side? For a long moment, Lena said nothing. Then she pulled out her phone again, opened her contacts, and pressed a number Victor Sterling had told her to memorize. Sterling Security, said a calm male voice. This is Lena Davis, she replied. Code word, Monarch. Confirm ownership verification for Brookstone Lane and execute immediate property protection order. There was a short pause. Then, confirmed. Team en route, ETA 5 minutes. Marina frowned. What the hell are you? 5 minutes later, 2 black SUVs rolled up the drive. 4 security officers stepped out wearing bulletproof vests with the Sterling insignia. The lead agent scanned Lena's ID and the deed. Mrs. Davis, you're the rightful owner. Do you want us to remove trespassers? Yes, Lena said softly, but her voice didn't shake this time. All of them. Terrell came running down the staircase in his robe, shouting, You can't do this. This is my house. The officer turned to him. Sir, this property belongs to Mrs. Davis. You have 5 minutes to leave, or you'll be escorted off for trespassing. Marina grabbed her phone and started filming. This is illegal. She cried. You're assaulting a pregnant woman? No one's touching you, Lena said evenly. But you're standing on private property. And for the record, she pointed toward the robe Marina wore. That's mine too. Marina froze. The officer gave her a thin smile. Ma'am, you'll need to change. 10 minutes later, Marina was outside, wrapped in a towel and raincoat, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Terrell's voice cracked as he shouted from the sidewalk. You'll regret this, Lena. You think you're strong because of that old man? You're nothing without me. She stood at the top of the steps, watching them from the warmth of the entryway. I was nothing with you, she said quietly. When the last of them were gone, the gate locked automatically behind them. The house fell silent, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the rain starting again against the windows. Lena made herself a cup of tea. She sat by the tall living room window, the city skyline glimmering faintly beyond the trees. For the first time in 10 years, she felt the rhythm of her own breath. Each exhale a release. Each inhale a promise. Outside, Terrell and Marina stood in the rain, shouting, their silhouettes shrinking as they argued in the driveway. The guards ignored them. Inside. Lena smiled faintly, whispering to herself, Freedom sounds like this. But in the quiet, a shadow of thought crept in. Tamara Jackson, Terrell's mother, the woman who ruled their lives with venom wrapped in pearls, would not let this go. She had lost her house, her company, and her pride all in one night, and women like Tamara never lost quietly. Lena set her teacup down, straightened her shoulders, and whispered, Then let her come. Monday morning came like a hangover that wouldn't end. The mansion was quiet now, too quiet. Lena Davis moved through it in a fog, sipping cold coffee, staring at the marble floors that only yesterday had felt like victory. But victory had its own kind of silence, one that pressed against her chest until breathing hurt. Her phone buzzed. Dozens of messages. Some from colleagues. Some from numbers she didn't recognize. She ignored them all, grabbed her blazer, and drove downtown toward the Davis Freight and Logistics building, the company that bore her married name but had never once made her feel like family. The moment she stepped through the glass doors, she felt the air shift. Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned. A dozen smartphones hovered midair, filming. Then came the sound of heels sharp. Deliberate and hateful. Tamara Jackson. Terrell's mother appeared in the doorway, flanked by relatives dressed head to toe in black, like mourners at a funeral. Behind them came Tiffany, the younger sister-in-law whose ruined wedding had lit this entire fuse. Look at her. Tamara's voice cut across the lobby. This is the snake we warmed in our bosom. Her words echoed off the marble. She stole the family home. She stole the business. She threw my pregnant daughter-in-law into the street. Lena froze. Security guards looked helpless. Office workers whispered, some smirking behind their phones. Tamara pointed straight at her. Fear God, Lena. How dare you rob your husband's bloodline and then show your face here? Tiffany added, sobbing theatrically. She took everything, Mama. Even Daddy's watch. The humiliation hit harder than Terrell's words at the wedding ever had. There was no ballroom music here, just fluorescent lights and stranger's pity. Lena felt the burn of tears, but she refused to cry in front of them. She pushed through the crowd, her heels clicking like gunshots, and headed for the elevator. On the top floor. The glass doors of the executive suite swung open before she could knock. RROT T. Petrovich. Her division director, a tall man with salt and pepper hair and a permanent frown, was waiting. He motioned her inside without looking up from his phone. Close the door, he said. When she obeyed, he finally looked at her. Tamara Jackson just called the corporate office. She's threatening lawsuits, audits, television interviews. She says you forged documents to steal her assets. Lena's throat tightened. She's lying. Everything was transferred legally. He sighed. I don't care who's lying. I care that our company doesn't end up in the headlines. You have two choices: sign a voluntary resignation or hand the property back. If you fight her, should drag all of us down. Your decision, Mrs. Davis. Her legs went numb. After 10 years of working here, this was what loyalty amounted to: silence or surrender. She stood, her voice a whisper. I understand. Outside the office, the stares followed her again. The phones were still out. Someone muttered, "That's her," as if she were a criminal walking past. By the time she reached the parking lot, her hands were shaking so badly she dropped her keys twice. Then her phone rang. An unfamiliar number. She almost didn't answer, but the voice on the line was low and calm. Lena, said Victor Sterling. Don't panic. Tamara's scared. That's why she's performing. She doesn't have real power, just noise. Lena closed her eyes. Noise can ruin a person. Not if you drown it out with facts, he replied. Listen carefully. You are the legal CEO of Davis Freight and Logistics. Log in right now. Run a full audit. Check every transfer from the past 12 months. You'll find what you need. He hung up before she could answer. Lena sat in her car for a long moment, staring at her reflection in the rearview mirror, eyes red, hair disheveled, pride in pieces. Then she opened her laptop, tethered her phone to the signal, and logged into the company system using her credentials. The dashboard loaded rows of transactions, accounts, ledgers. She scrolled through month after month, her heart pounding faster with every line item. August 18th, 2 large transfers caught her eye. One to a law office of Henderson and Greaves, another to New Life Private Surgical Clinic. She clicked the clinic entry. The amount, $250,000. The memo line, settlement and confidentiality. Her breath caught. She searched the clinic's records online. A headline appeared on a local news blog from that same week. 10-year-old boy injured in hit and run on Northside Drive. Driver fled the scene. Family declines to press charges after private settlement. Below was a name, Andrew Kovalev, and the make of the car, black Mercedes E-Class. Terrell's car. Lena's stomach twisted. She opened the law firm transaction. The same date, Another $120,000, wired from the company account she had technically signed as co-owner. Her mind reeled. She saw it all now. The business expenses, the consulting fees. It wasn't corporate spending, it was hush money Tamara had used her position to bury a crime and had done it under Lena's name. Her voice cracked in the empty car. Oh God, they used me. Every payment, every signature, they had made her the legal front for their corruption. If the police ever reopened that case, she wouldn't just lose her reputation. She'd lose her freedom. Her hands trembled over the keyboard. She thought of Victor's warning, those people would rather burn you alive than see you in power. The screen blurred through her tears. The rain had started again outside, streaking down the windshield like prison bars. She whispered to herself, they think I won't fight back. And then, softly but with rising strength, they're wrong. She pressed export Gift's full audit report and watched as the files compiled. Every secret they'd buried now in her possession, but the realization settled like a weight in her chest. She wasn't just the victim anymore. She was holding the evidence of a felony, and the only way to survive was to expose them before they destroyed her first. Audit report kept flashing on Lena Davis's laptop long after she stopped reading. Lines of numbers glowed against the dark like tiny accusations. Each transfer was a wound, each signature a bruise on her own name. She shut the computer, pressed her palms to her eyes, and whispered, what have they done to me? Her phone vibrated on the desk. Unknown number. For a second, she thought it might be Victor. Sterling again, but the name that appeared made her chest tighten. Terrell Davis. She almost declined. Almost. Instead, she answered, voice flat. What do you want? His tone was different, softer, broken. Lena. Baby, please. Don't hang up. She didn't speak. I messed up. I know that now. Mama got in my head, had me believing you were out to destroy us. I see it clear now. Can we meet? Just talk. One last time. For everything we had. Silence. Then a slow exhale. Where? She asked. Grant Park, he said. Near the fountain. It's quiet there. The park was almost empty when she arrived. Mothers pushed strollers under the oaks. A saxophonist played soft blues near the pond. Terrell stood by the fountain wearing jeans and a wrinkled sweatshirt instead of his usual tailored armor. His eyes were bloodshot, hair uncombed, like sleep had abandoned him for weeks. When he saw her, he dropped his cigarette and ground it beneath his shoe. Thank you for coming, he murmured. Lena crossed her arms. Say what you need to say. He took a breath. I lost everything, Lena. The house, the company, my reputation. You were the only thing I had that ever mattered, and I ruined that too. He looked down at his hands. Mama, she made me believe you were trying to take over. She told me if I didn't act, I'd lose my legacy. But it wasn't legacy, was it? It was control. Lena stared at him, stone still. Part of her wanted to believe him. Another part remembered every cruel word he'd ever used to shrink her. He stepped closer. I can't undo what I did, but I can fix some of it. Let's sell the company. The house, everything. We'll pay off debts, split what's left. You can go your way, I'll go mine. Maybe even start over somewhere new. No lawyers, no press. Just peace. She studied him carefully. Why now? Because I'm tired, he said simply. I don't want war anymore. His voice cracked on the last word, and for the first time in years, she saw the man she'd once loved hiding behind the arrogance. The apology felt almost real. Almost. She nodded slowly. Fine, tomorrow, at the notary's office. We'll settle it there. Relief flooded his face. He reached out as if to touch her hand, but she stepped back. Don't, she said quietly. Not yet. He lowered his hand and looked away, shame washing over him. Tomorrow then, he whispered, that evening. Lena returned to the mansion. The air smelled of lemon polish and rain through open windows. She poured herself a glass of wine, sat on the balcony, and stared at the city lights twinkling below like tiny promises. Maybe peace was possible, she thought. Maybe he truly meant it this time. Her phone buzzed. A message from Victor Sterling. Check your email. Now, she opened her laptop. An email sat at the top with no subject line and one video attachment labeled dinner footage. She clicked. The video opened to a restaurant booth, the warm glow of a steakhouse, soft jazz in the background. At the table sat Terrell, Notary Zeman, a heavyset man with a shiny forehead, and a cold-eyed man in a doctor's coat. Terrell was laughing. Loud, confident, nothing like the broken man at the park. Tomorrow she signs everything, he said, swirling his glass. General power of attorney, medical consent, all of it. The clinic's ready to admit her. Y'all just need to make her look unstable. Zeman smirked. You'll have her signature by noon? And then, the doctor added dryly, we'll have her sedated for evaluation. Once the papers are processed, she can stay there for months. Nobody will question it. Terrell clinked his glass against theirs. To fresh starts. Lena's breath hitched. Her vision tunneled. The balcony lights blurred as if underwater. She replayed the clip 3 times, each time hoping the words would change. They did in single quotes T. Her hand shook as she picked up her phone and typed, I saw. What do I do tomorrow? Victor's reply came within seconds. Go. Act normal. Don't sign their document. Sign only what I send you tonight. I'll take care of the rest. She exhaled shakily, staring out at the skyline. The city looked different now, sharper, colder. Somewhere out there, the man who had once sworn to protect her was plotting to erase her completely. She closed her laptop, whispered to the empty room, I believed you once, Terrell. Never again. And inside her chest, something shifted fear, turning slowly, quietly. Into fire. Morning broke hard and gray over downtown Atlanta. Rain drummed against the courthouse roofs as Lena Davis stepped from her car. The air thick with the smell of wet asphalt and nerves. Her trench coat clung to her shoulders, concealing the slim folder Victor Sterling had couriered to her overnight. Inside were crisp legal pages stamped with her company's seal and her escape plan. Across the street, the law office of Zeman and Associates glowed through rain-slick windows. The brass plaque beside the door gleamed like a dare. She inhaled once, squared her spine, and pushed through the door. The receptionist, red nails, fake sympathy, barely glanced up. You're Mrs. Davis? They're waiting. Inside, the notary's office smelled of stale cigars and cheap cologne. Terrell sat at the oak desk in a pressed suit, pretending calm. Beside him lounged Notary Zeman, broad-shouldered and sweating, with folders stacked like bricks. On a side table lay a leather briefcase embossed with the name of the New Life Clinic, the one from the hidden camera video. Lena. Terrell's smile was careful, polished. You look beautiful. She closed the door without answering. Her heels clicked once on the tile and stopped. Zeman slid a thick document across the desk. General power of attorney, he said smoothly. Standard procedure to finalize your divorce settlement. One signature, and you'll both be free. Terrell leaned forward, voice honeyed. It's just paperwork, baby. Sign it, and all this drama ends. Lena's eyes didn't leave his. You sure you want me to sign this one? He chuckled. I'm giving you everything you asked for. She reached into her folder and withdrew a single sheet, the one Victor had sent. Then let's make it mutual. She uncapped her pen and, under their watchful eyes, signed her own page with steady precision. The notary frowned. What's that? An internal order from Davis Freight and Logistics, she said calmly. Effective immediately, Terrell Davis is terminated as company director for gross misuse of funds, including obstruction of justice and the concealment of a felony. Terrell blinked. What? Lena pushed another page toward him, printed copies of the bank transfers, each highlighted in yellow. $250,000 to a private clinic. $120,000 to a law firm. August 18th. You covered up a child's hit and run with company money. Under my name. Zimmern's complexion turned ashen. Mrs. Davis, perhaps we should— No, Lena cut in. You should read the law. Mr. Zimmern, a notary who knowingly participates in a fraudulent conveyance can be disbarred and imprisoned. Terrell's mask cracked. You think you can scare me with paperwork? You don't know who you're dealing with. Oh, I know, she said. A man who paid a doctor to lock his wife in a psychiatric ward. He flinched. She nodded toward the briefcase on the side table. You brought your ambulance, didn't you? The one waiting outside. The plan was to drug me after I signed this fake power of attorney. For a long second, no one breathed. Then the door handle clicked. Two men in white coats appeared in the hall, hesitating, confused. Lena smiled faintly. Gentlemen, you're early. The men backed away slowly. Zimmern swallowed. Mrs. Davis, this is a misunderstanding. She cut him off, placing her hand on the folder Victor had prepared. No misunderstanding. You wanted me to sign something? Fine. She turned to Terrell. Sign this. She slid the final page across the desk. The heading read, Acknowledgement of Debt Obligation. Terrell barely glanced at it, fury clouding his eyes. Whatever. I'll sign every damn thing if it shuts you up. He scrawled his signature in heavy strokes. A quiet click sounded behind him. The office door opened again, this time to reveal Victor Sterling, immaculate in charcoal gray, followed by two uniformed security officers. Good morning. Gentlemen, Victor said pleasantly. Hope I'm not interrupting. Zimmern blanched. Mr. Sterling, I didn't know. I know, Victor said mildly. You were about to commit a felony. He nodded toward one of his men, who produced a recording device. We've been live streaming since Lena walked in. Terrell stood abruptly. You set me up. No, Lena said softly. You set yourself up. Victor walked to the desk, picked up the page Terrell had signed, and handed it to the nearest officer. This document acknowledges a personal debt of $15 million owed by Terrell Davis to Davis Freight and Logistics, enforceable by asset forfeiture. Terrell stared at the paper as if it were written in fire. That's not what Victor's smile was ice. You should always read before you sign. The color drained from Terrell's face. You can't do this. I'll contest it. Lena met his eyes. You can try. But the notary and your little doctor friend are about to give sworn statements about your plan to have me institutionalized. You'll be lucky if fraud is the only charge they file. Zimmern slumped into his chair, whispering, I just wanted my cut. Victor looked down at him. And now you'll want a lawyer? Outside, thunder rolled again, inside. The only sound was Terrell's ragged breathing as he realized everything was gone, his company, his money, his freedom. He looked at Lena as if seeing her for the first time, not the timid woman he could control, but the storm he had summoned himself. Lena rose slowly, gathering her folder. You once said I was nothing without you, she said. Turns out you're nothing because of me. She walked past him without another glance, heels steady, chin high. Behind her, Victor gave a small nod to his men. Let's escort our friends to their next appointments with the authorities. As the rain thickened against the window, Terrell's voice cracked in the distance. Lena, please don't leave me like this. But she didn't look back. Outside, the city smelled clean again, like lightning had burned the filth away. Her victory wasn't loud. It was cold, precise, and absolute. Still, in the quiet of her chest, she knew this wasn't the end dot when power falls. Pride fights harder, and somewhere, Tamara Jackson was already planning her next move dot by Thursday morning. The city wasn't whispering anymore. It was shouting. Lena Davis woke to the shrill buzz of her phone. Notifications flooded the screen, hundreds of them. Mentions, reposts, tags. A headline glared back at her from a gossip blog. ATL business widow exposes. Her ex-husband's mistress then steals his family fortune. Below it, a thumbnail froze her blood. Tamara Jackson, wrapped in a black church shawl, clutching a crucifix and weeping for the camera. Tamara's voice filled the screen. We raised her like our own daughter. She sobbed. Fed her, clothed her, gave her son. And she repaid us by robbing us blind. She threw my pregnant daughter-in-law into the rain. Lord, have mercy on that wicked heart. A choir track swelled behind the video. Someone had edited slow-motion clips of the mansion gates closing, of moving trucks hauling furniture. The words #justice for the Davis family flashed in bold white letters across the bottom. Within hours, the video had gone viral, 500,000 views, then 1 million. Comment sections turned into bonfires. Typical gold digger. She slept her way up. Pray for the Davis women, a till full of demons. Lena scrolled until her hands shook. Even people she'd worked with were sharing the post, writing vague captions about karma. She wanted to reply, to scream the truth, but she knew silence was safer. The internet didn't want proof. It wanted blood. By noon, she couldn't breathe inside the house anymore. She threw on sunglasses and a hoodie and drove to the grocery store on Peachtree, hoping anonymity still existed somewhere. It didn't. The moment she stepped into the fluorescent light of the produce aisle, she felt it, the hush, the ripple of recognition. A woman near the avocados whispered to her friend. Another pulled out her phone. A third smeared, loud enough for Lena to hear, "That's her. The one who scammed that poor family." Lena kept her eyes on the oranges, pretending not to notice. But the whispers grew, building into a low, hateful hum. At the checkout line, the cashier hesitated, fingers frozen above the scanner. Do you maybe have another card?" she asked quietly. "We can't accept this one right now." Lena frowned. "It's a normal debit card." The cashier looked away. "Manager's orders." From behind came a voice thick with spite. "She probably stole it too." Lena turned. A heavy-set woman in a church bonnet stood glaring at her, phone in hand. "You got nerve shopping here after what you did. Robbing family and running to the devil's man for protection." Lena's jaw clenched. "Ma'am, I don't know you." The woman stepped closer, eyes blazing. "Oh, we all know you. You think you can hide behind money, but God sees everything." And then, before Lena could move, the woman spat at her. The warm shock hit her cheek, sliding down to her collar. The store went silent. Lena didn't shout. She didn't cry. She simply wiped her face with a trembling hand, left her basket where it was, and walked out. Outside, the sun stabbed through the clouds, merciless and bright. She made it to the parking lot before her knees gave way. Leaning against her car, she looked up and froze. Every tire was slashed. The hood was gouged with deep white letters, "Thief." A shaky laugh broke from her throat, half sob, half disbelief. "Of course," she whispered. Of course they would. For a long moment, she just stood there, cars rushing past, people staring, none of them stopping to help. Atlanta felt suddenly enormous and cruel a city with her picture printed on its tongue. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. "You deserve everything coming to you." Her thumb hovered over the delete button, then dropped. She couldn't even bring herself to fight anymore. The storm clouds gathered again over the skyline. Rain began to fall slow at first, then heavy, washing through the cracks in the asphalt. running over the word carved into her hood until it blurred and bled into nothing. She started walking. No umbrella, no destination, just motion because stopping meant shattering. 2 blocks later, she found herself in front of a small brick church she'd passed 100 times but never entered. The sign read Mount Zion Community Chapel, all welcome. She pushed the door open and sighed. It was quiet, just the faint smell of candles and old wood polish. She bought a thin white candle from the stand, lit it, and placed it beneath the icon at the altar. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "Please, just give me peace." Her voice cracked on the last word. Tears blurred the flame into gold haze. For a few seconds, she felt stillness, the first she'd had in days, then a sound behind her heels striking the tile. Fast, angry, she turned. Tiffany Davis stood in the doorway. Her hair messy, eyes bloodshot, a bottle clutched in one hand. Her lipstick was smeared. Her grief loud and mean. Well, Tiffany slurred, staggering closer. The queen herself. Came to church to pray for forgiveness or to gloat? Lena's stomach turned. The candlelight flickered against the stained glass windows, painting Tiffany's face in shards of red and blue. Tiffany's lips curled. "You think this is over? You think you can humiliate my family and walk away?" She lifted the bottle slightly, fingers tightening around the neck. "You'll pay for everything, you hear me?" Lena took a slow step back, heart pounding. "Tiffany, you're drunk." "Put that down." Tiffany laughed, wild and bitter. "Drunk?" "Honey, I'm enlightened." She moved closer, voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "You don't deserve peace. You don't deserve to breathe while Mama cries herself to sleep." Lena's back hit the edge of the pew. For the first time in a long time, she felt real fear, not for her reputation, but for her life. Outside, thunder cracked again over Atlanta, and just as Tiffany raised her hand, ready to strike, a deep male voice from the doorway said, "Put that bottle down." "Tiffany." The voice was calm, controlled, and familiar. Lena turned toward, its eyes widening as the next twist in her story stepped out of the rain. The church door groaned in the wind as the voice echoed through the chapel, "Put that bottle down." "Tiffany." Both women turned, standing in the doorway. Framed by the rain and flickering candlelight was Serge Carter's sharp suit, broad shoulders, and a face carved from stone. The man everyone in Atlanta's social pages called the cleanest millionaire in Buckhead. He was also Tiffany's fiancé for a moment. Even Tiffany froze. "Serge," she stammered, lowering the bottle slightly. "Baby, this isn't what it looks like. It looks," he said evenly, stepping closer, "like you were about to assault someone in a church." Rainwater dripped from his coat onto the marble floor. His eyes flicked from the bottle to Lena's trembling hands and back again. Then he took the bottle from Tiffany's grip, set it gently on the altar, and turned fully toward Lena. "Are you all right, Mrs. Davis?" Lena nodded stiffly, her voice soft. "I'm fine. She just needs to leave." But Tiffany wasn't done. The brief flash of fear turned to fury. "You're defending her? After everything she did to my family? She stole our company. She made us homeless. She ruined my life." Serge raised an eyebrow. "Funny, because the audit Lena sent to the shareholders says otherwise." The words dropped like a stone into water. Tiffany blinked. "What audit?" Serge's tone stayed calm, but the edges were razor sharp. "The internal review from Davis Freight and Logistics. It landed in my inbox this morning. Your family didn't lose their fortune, they laundered it. Through shell accounts, fake invoices, and a fake medical settlement. It's all there. Every dollar." Lena exhaled slowly. She hadn't known Victor had already leaked the files. Serge had been one of the company's biggest investors, and now he had proof of everything. Tiffany's voice wavered. You don't know what you're talking about? Oh, I do, Serge said. Your mother bribed an investigator. Your brother falsified ledgers. And he looked her dead in the eye. You used corporate cards for personal shopping sprees and luxury vacations, all billed under employee wellness. Her jaw fell open. Who told you that? He took out his phone and pressed play. The audio of her mother's viral video filled the church, the wailing, the lies. Then he showed her the next clip, the audit summary, line by line. Her own signature on the expense reports. I wanted to believe you, Serge said quietly. I told people you were just caught in family politics. But you weren't. You were part of it. Tiffany's breathing quickened. Serge, please don't do this here. You can't believe her. She's sleeping with Victor Sterling, for God's sake. Lena flinched but didn't respond. She didn't need to. Serge's face didn't even twitch, even if she were, he said. At least she's not lying to the entire city while hiding behind a cross. The room went dead silent. Tiffany's lipstick trembled as she tried to smile. Baby, I love you. We can fix this. We can fix everything. Serge shook his head slowly. No, Tiffany. What's broken is your soul. And I don't fix people who destroy others to feel whole. He turned to Lena and nodded respectfully. You were right to send that report. I'll make sure the investors know the truth and that the authorities get every file. If Tiffany or her mother harass you again, call me directly. My security team will handle it. Then he turned back to Tiffany. We're done. For good. Her voice cracked, rising into a sob. You can't do this. You can't walk away from me. But he already had. Serge walked to the door, stepped into the rain, and disappeared into the silver blur outside. For a long moment, Tiffany just stood there, staring at the space he'd left behind. Then her knees gave out. She fell against the pew, clutching her hair, her cries echoing off the stone walls. You think you've won? She screamed at Lena through her tears. You think this makes you righteous? You ruined us. You'll burn for this. Lena didn't answer. She simply looked down at the candle she'd lit earlier, the flame still steady, untouched by the storm outside. After a moment, she whispered, No, Tiffany. I'm just done being your victim. She turned, walking slowly down the aisle. Tiffany's sobs faded behind her as the church door opened to the sound of thunder. Rain misted her face when she stepped outside. It felt cold. Clean, alive. On the steps, Lena paused beneath the awning, the city stretching before her in lights and rain. Somewhere out there, Tamara Jackson was still plotting. But Tiffany's collapse had proven one thing. The truth was spreading, and the Davises were unraveling from the inside. For the first time in weeks, Lena felt a strange kind of calm, not safety, not joy, but a stillness that smelled like dawn. She whispered to herself, one last step, and then she walked down the stairs toward the street. Not looking back once, evening draped the city in bruised clouds. Atlanta's skyline shimmered in puddles as Lena Davis stepped out of her car, clutching her bag close. She had planned to drop off audit copies at Victor Sterling's office before nightfall, but she never made it that far. A black and white police cruiser pulled up to the curb. 2 officers stepped out, rain glinting off their jackets. Mrs. Davis? One asked, Yes? You're under arrest for felony fraud and forgery, he said, voice flat. Hands where I can see them. Her pulse froze. What? The officer spun her gently but firmly, snapping cold metal around her wrists. People stopped on the sidewalk. Someone pulled out a phone. The familiar sound of recording clicks cut through the drizzle. This is a mistake, she said, but they were already reading her rights. As the car door slammed. The world outside blurred into streaks of neon and thunder. She thought of Tamara Jackson's face, the trembling lips, the fake tears in that viral video, and she knew exactly who. was behind this. The precinct was colder than the rain. They didn't take her to a holding cell. Instead, they led her straight down a narrow hall to a dim office lined with file cabinets and framed commendations. The brass nameplate on the desk read, Captain H. Mercer. He didn't look up when she entered. Sit down, he said, flipping through a folder. She sat. The chair creaked. Her wet hair clung to her face. Mercer finally raised his head. Middle-aged, clean-shaven, eyes sharp with bureaucratic boredom. Mrs. Davis, I've been asked to question you personally. Seems you've been busy signing over multi-million-dollar properties, manipulating corporate accounts, and forging signatures. Lena's throat went dry. That's a lie. He smiled thinly. I've got proof. He opened the folder and slid a sheet across the desk. It was a copy of the deed transfer, the same one she'd signed weeks ago, but the signatures looked faintly different, slanted, off below them. A note in red ink, expert analysis, forgeries confirmed. She leaned forward. That's not my handwriting. According to the state-certified expert, it is, he said. You forged the Davis family signatures to steal their assets. And the notary who processed the documents, he flipped another page, was conveniently found dead 3 days ago. Lena's blood ran cold. That's not true. He's alive. I spoke to him. Mercer shrugged. Then he must have resurrected because we've got a death certificate. She stared at him, realizing this wasn't an investigation. It was theater. Tamara had bought herself a stage. And this man was the actor. Mercer leaned forward, voice dropping to a purr. Here's what's gonna happen. You'll write a confession admitting you falsified the documents and laundered funds through Davis Freight. You'll sign it, return the property, and maybe I'll recommend probation instead of 10 years. Lena's hands clenched in her lap. You're blackmailing me. I'm giving you mercy, he said softly. You're not built for prison, sweetheart. But I've seen what happens to women who think they can play gangster. So let's not make this ugly. For a long moment, the only sound was rain tapping the window. Then she spoke, voice steady. You said you had an expert witness? He smirked. Best in the state. She tilted her head. Funny, because the Georgia Bureau of Licensing revoked his certification 2 years ago for falsifying testimony. Section 8 of the U.S. Code makes fake expert reports a federal crime. So if you're basing your arrest on that, Captain, you're the one breaking the law. Mercer's smirk faltered. Lena's voice gained strength. And you can keep your threats. I'm not signing anything. He slammed his fist on the table. You think Victor Sterling can save you? He's not here now. You're just another greedy woman who thought she could outsmart the system. He rose from his chair, looming over her, rage simmering. You'll sign before morning, or you'll never see daylight again. Maybe we'll have an accident during transport. People slip in the rain, you know. Lena met his eyes, unblinking. Do it then. For a second, he hesitated, just long enough for the door to explode open behind him. The impact was so violent, the doorknob punched through the drywall. Victor Sterling stood in the frame, immaculate in a dark raincoat, not a drop on him. 2 officers lay unconscious in the hallway behind him. Mercer spun around, hand reaching for his sidearm, but froze when he saw the badge and Victor's hand embossed with gold. Marked Federal Special Oversight Division. Hands off the woman, Victor said quietly. Now, Mercer hesitated. This is a police matter. Victor stepped closer, and the air in the room shifted. It was, he said, until you accepted a private bribe from Tamara Jackson. We have the transactions, the phone calls, the recording. Mercer's face went pale. You can't prove that. Victor gave a small nod toward the door. An older man stepped in, gray-haired, wearing a beige suit and carrying a leather briefcase. Lena gasped. It was the notary, the same one they'd claimed was dead. He set the briefcase on the desk and opened it calmly. Good evening, Captain. My name is Ernest Claiborne. I believe you've been told I passed away. As you can see, reports of my death were exaggerated. Mercer backed up a step, eyes darting between them. What is this? Some kind of joke? No, Victor said. This is your end of shift. The notary placed a flash drive on the table. Here are the registry logs, video records, and time-stamped verification showing that Tamara Jackson and Terrell Davis voluntarily transferred all assets to Mrs. Lena Davis 3 years ago. Fully notarized, fully legal. You'll find the original digital signatures, witness scans, and payment records attached. Mercer's jaw worked sound less light. Lena sat frozen, tears welling in her eyes as relief crashed over her in waves. She whispered, "You were alive this whole time?" Claiborne smiled kindly. Safer that way. Mr. Sterling anticipated Mrs. Jackson might try something drastic. Victor looked down at her, voice steady and protective. You see, Lena, they don't own the truth anymore. He turned back to Mercer. Call whoever you need to call, Captain. But if she isn't released in 60 seconds, I'll have federal prosecutors here before sunrise. Mercer's hands trembled as he reached for the phone. We will fix this. It's a misunderstanding. Victor's gaze didn't soften. It always is. Outside, the storm had finally broken. Lena walked out of the precinct beside Victor and Claiborne. The night air was sharp and clean, smelling of wet asphalt and freedom. She stopped beside his black SUV, turned to him, and asked quietly, "Did you know he was alive all along?" Victor's eyes held hers. I hoped, but I didn't know until he called me this morning. Lena exhaled, a shaky laugh escaping her lips. Then what now? He opened the car door for her. Now, we don't just have a shield, he said. We have a sword. She looked at him, the glow of streetlights catching the silver in his hair. And tomorrow? He smiled faintly. Tomorrow we finish the story. As the car pulled away, the reflection of red and blue lights shimmered across the windshield remnants of a battle, finally turning in her favor, and somewhere in the city, as thunder rolled over the rooftops, Tamara Jackson had no idea that her empire was already collapsing. The precinct felt smaller once the truth walked in. The rain outside slowed to a mist that tapped the windows like hesitant applause, as if the city itself was waiting to hear what came next. Ernest Claiborne, the gray-haired notary everyone believed dead, opened his leather briefcase on Captain Mercer's desk. His movements were calm, deliberate, each click of the latch a sentence against the lies that had poisoned Lena's life. "Captain," he said, sliding out a laptop and a neat stack of documents. These are the official records from the Georgia Notarial Registry, all sealed and time-stamped. You'll find the audio and video of the signing, along with copies of Mrs. Tamara Jackson's and Mr. Terrell Davis's identification. Mercer swallowed. That doesn't prove anything. Claiborne pressed a key. The laptop screen glowed. The video began to play. There they were, Tamara, regal and cruel in her cream suit. Terrell, smug and restless. Lena, younger, quieter. The timestamp read June 3rd, 2022 to 2:47 p.m. Tamara's voice filled the room. Yes. We're transferring the company and properties into Lena Davis's name temporarily for tax structuring. Then Terrell added, laughing, "She's my wife. I trust her. Sign it." The recording showed every flourish of pen, every witness signature, every seal pressed into gold ink. When the video ended, silence hung thick. Claiborne closed the laptop. As you can see, Captain, all parties signed voluntarily. There was no coercion, no forgery, and certainly no fraud. Mercer's face had gone ashen. This can't be real. Victor Sterling stepped forward, resting both hands on the desk. It's very real. The Jackson family forged your death certificate to erase this evidence. They bribed your department's forensic specialist to produce a fake handwriting analysis. That's obstruction of justice, falsifying official records, and conspiracy. He let the words settle like thunder. Lena watched the captain shrink in his chair. Part of her wanted to scream, to demand every apology the world owed her, but another part was simply tired. Can I go home now? She asked softly. Mercer nodded numbly. You're free to leave. We'll issue a formal retraction. Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. Do more than that. You'll file a statement naming every person who helped Tamara Jackson fabricate this case. Or the next badge to fall will be yours. Mercer looked down at his trembling hands and whispered, Yes, sir. Claiborne packed up his briefcase. The quiet hum of the laptop shutting down sounded like the closing of a coffin. Outside, the night air hit Lena's lungs like cold water the storm had passed, leaving the streets slick and reflective. Police lights painted everything in red and blue streaks. Victor's SUV waited at the curb. He opened the door for her, the motion crisp, protective. Lena turned to the notary. You could have stayed hidden. Why come back? Claiborne gave her a gentle smile. Because lies grow in darkness, Mrs. Davis. I thought it was time to open the blinds. She nodded, emotion clogging her throat. Thank you. When he left, Victor guided her into the car. The door shut softly, sealing them in a bubble of silence. The city lights slid across his face, sharp and silver. You knew, she said quietly. You had him hiding. I suspected he was alive, Victor replied. Tamara's people move fast, but greed makes them sloppy. One of her men bragged about a payoff. I followed the thread. Lena let out a shaky laugh. You really don't leave anything to chance, do you? He looked at her, his voice low but steady. Chance doesn't protect people like us. For a moment, neither spoke. The hum of the engine filled the space between them. Lena stared out the window at the glimmering city, the same city that had mocked her 3 days ago. Now strangely quiet. I don't even know what to feel, she murmured. It's over, but it doesn't feel over. Victor nodded slowly. That's because it isn't. Tamara still thinks she can claw her way back. But tomorrow, his eyes met hers in the reflection of the glass. Tomorrow we finish the story. Lena exhaled, the tension leaving her shoulders for the first time in weeks. Then I'll be there. He smiled faintly. Good. You'll need to wear white. White? She asked, half smiling. Nothing says victory like purity, he said. And you've earned it. The SUV rolled through the empty streets, tires whispering over rainwater behind them. The precinct lights faded into the distance, ahead. The horizon glowed pale with the promise of dawn. For the first time in a long time, Lena Davis didn't feel hunted. She felt ready. Tomorrow, there would be no more hiding. No more running, only reckoning. The morning air over Royal Heights was unnaturally still, as if even the wind was waiting for what came next at exactly 9 a.m. A convoy rolled through the iron gates of the Davis estate, 4 black SUVs, 2 U.S. Marshal vans, and 1 sleek sedan with chrome rims that gleamed like judgment. Neighbors peeked from their porches in silk robes, cameras already raised. For them, this wasn't tragedy, it was spectacle. From the sedan stepped Lena Davis, dressed in a fitted white pantsuit and heels that struck the driveway like a drumbeat. Her hair was pinned high, her face calm, her poise absolute. The woman who once trembled at table 28 now walked like she owned the sky, because she did own everything beneath it. Behind her, Victor Sterling closed the car door and nodded to the lead marshal. Execute the writ. The marshal, tall and broad with mirrored sunglasses, unfolded the paperwork. By federal order of debt enforcement, all assets of Terrell and Tamara Davis are to be confiscated and transferred to Mrs. Lena Davis. The legal creditor, His voice carried through the courtyard like a sermon. Within minutes, uniformed marshals spread across the lawn. Two began photographing the property, others marking furniture for removal. A moving truck idled at the curb, engine rumbling like thunder waiting to break. The mansion's front door swung open. Tamara Jackson appeared in her silk robe, hair disheveled, pearls askew. Behind her, Terrell stumbled into view, face hollow, still wearing the arrogance that had long since expired. "You can't do this." Tamara shrieked. "This is my house. My father built this home with his hands." Lena's voice was steady. "Your father sold it to the bank 20 years ago? You mortgaged it again 5 times? Now it's mine." Tamara snatched the paper from the marshal's hand and tore it in half. "Fake, you forged this." Victor's tone stayed polite. "That's a federal document, Mrs. Jackson. Tearing it only adds destruction of government property to your list." Tamara's fury flickered into panic. "I'll call the police." "You should," Victor said. "They'll want to witness your eviction." Terrell stepped forward, chest puffed with desperate bravado. "Lena, please. We can talk about this. You're not a monster." She met his eyes, those same eyes that once looked down at her in contempt. "I used to believe that," she said quietly. "But you were wrong. I'm not a monster. I'm the consequence." The marshal checked his watch. "You have 30 minutes to gather personal belongings. After that, everything inside is property of the court." Tamara's lip quivered. "Where are we supposed to go?" Lena opened her bag and took out a thin white envelope. She walked forward and handed it to Tamara. Inside were a few crisp bills. "There's $300 in there," Lena said evenly. "It should be enough to get to a motel and a bus ticket out of Atlanta." Tamara stared at the envelope like it was poison. "You're mocking me." "No," Lena said. "I'm showing you mercy, the thing you never showed me." The marshals began taping bright orange seals to the doors. Furniture was wrapped, tagged, and carried down the marble steps. The portraits of the Davis ancestors came down one by one. Their gilded frames catching the sunlight like fading halos. Tiffany appeared in the doorway, makeup smeared, hair tangled. "You can't do this," she cried. "We're family." Lena's gaze didn't waver. "Family doesn't destroy the people who love them." "You taught me that." Victor turned to the marshals. "Commence asset transfer." One of the officers brought forward a portable sighting station. Lena picked up the pen, her manicured fingers steady. On the tablet screen glowed the sale document. "Transfer of property and corporate assets, Davis Freight and Logistics. Buyer, Sterling Holdings Group. Sale price, $70 million. Lena signed without hesitation. The stylus moved like a blade through paper. Victor signed next, then pressed his thumbprint for verification. "Funds received," he said, glancing at his watch. "Effective immediately." Tamara gasped. "You sold it to him? You sold everything to him?" Lena's eyes softened just slightly. "He's not keeping it," she said. "He's building something better." Victor nodded. "This mansion will be demolished within the week. In its place, we'll build the Naomi Pierce Community Park, named for a woman who believed every ending deserves light. Open gardens, free playgrounds, scholarships for underprivileged youth. No trace of the Davis name will remain here." Tamara stumbled backward as if struck. "You're erasing us." Lena looked around at the marble columns, the fountains, the ghosts. "You erased yourselves." The last of the movers carried out a box labeled Jackson Family Memorabilia. Rain began to fall again, light cleansing. The marshal approached. "It's done, ma'am." "Property officially transferred?" Lena nodded. "Seal it." With a hiss of adhesive, the final orange sticker was placed across the front door. "Confiscated property, federal authority." Terrell sank onto the wet steps, face buried in his hands. Tiffany knelt beside him, sobbing. Tamara just stood there, trembling, clutching the empty envelope that had once symbolized power and now meant survival. Lena turned to leave, but paused halfway down the drive. She looked back one last time. 10 years ago, she said softly, "You told me I wasn't family, that I came here to eat for free. Today, you're standing on my steps, begging for mercy. That's what truth does, Tamara. It comes home." Then she turned toward Victor, who waited beside the car. He opened the door for her with a small, approving nod. "Are you ready?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "I've been ready since the day they told me I didn't belong." As she stepped inside, the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds. The storm that had shadowed her for so long finally split open into gold dot behind her. The mansion stood silent, a monument to greed and ruin. Ahead of her, the road stretched clear and endless. Lena exhaled, her voice barely above a whisper. "Free." The convoy pulled away, leaving the Davis Empire in the rear view, its gates closing not in exile this time, but in peace.